Today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. Welcome back to episode 11. I haven't recorded one of these in a while. Oh my god, what happened to my voice? Episode 10 was a pretty big episode. We saw this whole Swiss thing go on, the whole Swiss Empire thing. And looking at this map, I'm realizing how many, big cities are in this one region. France is hella populated, bro. But yeah, we are now on episode 11. There honestly isn't too much changes to the map. I updated the provinces. It didn't take me that while. We saw, one country here or whatever. Another country here. And then there's, some small expansion. But, I didn't really have to draw in anything new. But what I actually did go ahead and add, this is just kind of a quality of life thing that I'll just toggle on and off and probably won't actually show in the videos. It'll just be helpful for me. But I did actually add a modern borders layer. Now, it is kind of hard to see. I wonder if I make it white, will it look better? I guess something like that does actually look better, despite how weird it looks. But you can see the modern borders of the modern world. Not that this necessarily means too much other than naming of countries. But you can actually see over here that this country that once existed, this this country that had the French, Genoan / Italian divide. Also, what the hell is going on here? Okay, anyway. But you can kind of see here that this country, I never get this country name, but honestly, this country being called Monaco would actually be such a good name for it. And I didn't even realize. I honestly thought Monaco was over here or here or something. I didn't realize it was so close. And also, these islands here have been under occupational color this whole time. Interesting. But you can see up here what the Swiss Empire encompasses in terms of territory. You can see that it actually encompasses a lot more of Germany than I thought. You also see over here that Austria almost encompasses all of modern day Austria. I just think it's low-key kind of interesting to look at all of this. But yeah, I'll zoom out all the way if you really want to, although it is kind of hard to see with all the red borders there. But yeah, that won't really impact the series having modern borders. I just think, it'll be fun to compare in the future. Oh, where is Serbia in this world compared to what it actually is in the real world? And Kosovo here, this area actually is Kosovo. That was actually correct. North Macedonia was in North Macedonia. And where's Western Macedonia? It's actually in 3 countries. And, just kind of all that kind of stuff. That's basically what it's aimed at. But obviously, the people making countries here aren't going to be no, I want to go ahead and form, modern-day Serbia borders, because modern-day Serbia isn't a thing. But anyway, that is enough of me yapping. I have no idea how much of that actually kept in the video, because it was just a bunch of ramble and nonsense. But let's go ahead and look at the first event of the video. And for this video, we're actually going to be looking at one pretty big event towards the end of the video, hence the title of the video. But to begin with, we're actually going to be seeing quite a few countries end up appearing. Last episode, we saw some pretty bad things happen over here to this Bohemian Confederation thing. And we're actually going to be seeing a new country appear over here to fill up the gaps. This country over here will be known as the Moravian country. Now, they are ethnically Bohemian. Maybe they have a bit of Swiss in them. But they're not part of the Bohemian Confederation. They're kind of pursuing their own kind of thing. But speaking of the Bohemian Confederation, we see one last country does go ahead and come into existence. And that is probably a country up here. That looks something a bit like this. And I guess because technically here there's more Bohemian people, I will just go ahead and fill this vacant spot by adding one last country. And there we go. That is the Bohemian Confederation. Fully built. Every Bohemian person is now in a Bohemian state. But we're not moving far to see more countries, as Slovakia and Hungary are finally going to get countries of their own. We see 4 new Slovakian countries do go ahead and appear. And you may notice that they're all pretty prominent, and that is true. They are all pretty prominent countries. Now, I don't really know if I like the colors of these countries. I actually don't think I like the color of this thing. I think this is the problem here. I think I'm going to go with this kind of dark green for the Moravian country instead. I don't really like that color still. Anyway, this is going to go ahead and do. I've given up with these countries here. But the main point is, the countries over here are actually much bigger. They're not much bigger, but they're pretty significant over here at least. And I guess kind of the 2 main ones are the yellow one and the pink one. Pink one will have its capital right here, which is right next to the Austrian border, but it's also on the Danube, which is kind of the main point. The yellow one will have their capital here. I was going to put it on the Danube, but it just looked weird. The orange one will have their capital up here, so it's actually probably not even in the Slovak region. Well, it is, but it's geographically similar to Bohemia. And then finally, this red one will go ahead and have their capital on this river, like so, or where else? They will go ahead and the capital on this river, like so, creating these 4 new Slovakian states. Now, whatever you want to call these countries, I don't mind. I'd probably say that this is Slovakia. Maybe it's Western Slovakia, Eastern Slovakia, and then I don't know what hell was going on up here. But I'd say the main Slovakian one is probably this one. Even though this one's bigger, this one has much more mountainous land, and this one has got the nice flat land over here that is probably decent for farming. I don't really know. But we also go down here to see some Hungarian countries being created. And there we go. We go in and see a bunch of Hungarian states are created. And now let me explain the Hungarian system over here, because the Hungarian countries over here have a pretty interesting kind of thing going on. And the main thing is that all of these countries in here, that the Hungarian countries, are actually all competing over this country here. Now, this country is kind of like, I guess, kind of the central Hungarian country, but it's actually not really a country at all. This entity over here is home to, I guess, kind of the imperial capital of Hungary. And basically all these countries are just kind of fight to whoever controls this country is the legitimate Hungarian country. Now, this is a very weird tradition, but it's just kind of a thing that's always existed in Hungary. And the country in charge of the imperial capital of Hungary is actually this blue country up here. So that is represented by this blue outline. But yeah, this is basically just the biggest Hungarian city. And like basically everyone's just kind of fighting over it. And like who's the emperor of Hungary per se. But they probably wouldn't call themselves an emperor. I don't really know what they would call themselves. And I guess this is an excuse to update the ideology map because it is extremely outdated. And I guess this kind of ideology can be this kind of pinkish color. I guess we can do a recap on the ideology. We have kingdom over here. Then we have like Grand Duchy. And then we have Tsardom, which is kind of like basically just a kingdom, but it's led by a Tsar instead of a king. Now, for what this new ideology would actually be called, I have absolutely no idea. Yeah, I just don't really know. But like basically all of these countries over here are under the same ideology. They all have like their local rulers, but the only one that can be considered the true Hungarian king, I guess, is the one who owns the imperial capital. So I guess the king or the duke of this blue country is the king of Hungary, per se. I guess you can just call it like the Hungarian ideology, I guess. Like Hungarian monarchism or something. Maybe that's the official name. Hungarian monarchism is what this ideology is. And yeah, basically whoever controls the imperial capital of the kingdom is technically the king, but all of these countries are duchies in their own right, essentially. So each of these countries has their own duke, and whichever one controls the imperial capital is, I guess, kind of the king of Hungary. If that doesn't make any sense, then don't worry, because I'm sure for 90% of people here it didn't make any sense. But anyway, let me go ahead and place the capital down of all these countries. It's also important to note that this country up here isn't actually majority Hungarian, but because of their Hungarian leadership, they have slowly begun assimilating and kind of converting people. Now, I know ethnicity doesn't work like this. Actually, I think I'm just going to stop saying that ethnicity doesn't work like this, because I feel like people that have watched this far in the series know that my ethnicity doesn't actually work how a real ethnicity does. But anyway, all of these countries will go ahead and have their own capital, like so. And yeah, Hungarian monarchism, that's what's going on over here. Now, I do have plans to make lots and lots of more countries, but I'll probably do the rest of those at the end of the episode so we can go ahead and get on to the interesting stuff. But before we get, I say interesting stuff, but you know, this is interesting, but like the war stuff. But before we get onto the war stuff, I am going to go ahead and do some more countries over in Bulgaria. But first, let me go ahead and make sure that these random ass islands are all filled in, because they all should be discovered and taken over. But yeah, up here, we go ahead and see that a new country will be created. This very weird looking green country, like so, which will actually have its colour changed to look like this, because that looks slightly better, maybe this kind of goldish country. Well, over here, we see that this Varna country will expand very nicely, becoming by far the dominant Bulgarian state, pushing its borders to look something like this. However, then we see that a little dispute breaks out between this blue country and Varna over who owns this piece of land here that is unclaimed up to the Danube, and it'll basically just lead to a war where Varna will go ahead and crush the army up over here, and basically we see that all of the royal family of this country are executed. And if you got no royal family, it means you got no heirs, and it means there's nobody here to stop me just taking over your whole country. So we see not only does Varna go ahead and get their claim over this region, but they also go ahead and eat this country up, and they now become a very big and strong country over here, potentially joining the gang of notable Balkan countries. But anyway, let's go ahead and get onto the main point of the video, and that is we're going to be looking at the first ancient crusade. It's in the title, you already know. Maybe like, why is there a crusade this early on in the time period? And now it's not like your medieval crusade. They're not going to reclaim the Holy Land, because Albania ain't their Holy Land. This is basically for multiple reasons. One, Albania is persecuting Vishman people. But that's not really the main reason. The main reason is because Venice over here, they've dropped off in power rankings. They're number 7. And the Venetian king goes over to the Pope and is like, hey, you control the churches in all the Visaman countries. Like, can you just use their money? And the Pope is like, that seems a bit corrupt. But then the Pope is bribed himself and is promised all the rewards from this. And then the Pope just becomes rich by stealing money from the churches. And with this brand new money, Venice will begin raising up an army. And Venice is also preparing to go ahead and call a meeting over here in Venice. As if we look on the religious organization tab, we can see that all 5 of the like super important, I guess, kind of council states up here will be called to Venice. I guess it's kind of 6 council members because Venice is here. But nonetheless, we see all 6 of these countries are called over to Venice. And we see after the Venetian representatives and the Pope itself kind of, lie about what's actually happening in Albania. They're not lying, like, not really lying, but they're more exaggerating. They're like saying that so many people are dying when there are people dying, but like it's not that many. And eventually we see that all council members will be on board with this crusade. And in the year 176 AV, we see Venice and the Pope will officially declare a holy war on the Tsar of Albania, declaring that they must liberate and punish and get revenge for the Visaman people living here. And yeah, without further ado, we can go ahead and go on to the alliance layer to go ahead and look at who will be joining this crusade. Now this crusade will be marked by this orange fisherman symbol, and it will go ahead and firstly contain Florence over here. Austria joins, Croatia joins, we see that Genoa and Turin go ahead and join. Sicily will join this, as well as over here, Catalonia. Now, Aquitaine and Provence are kind of suspicious. Now, Aquitaine and Provence don't really want to join this. I mean, first of all, let me go and remove this alliances. But they just fought a war which didn't really end well for them. But we do see that Provence does go ahead and join this. However, Aquitaine doesn't. But we also see that these countries over here do go ahead and join, as these countries are all part of their own religion and are actually quite religious. And finally, we see that a few of these countries will go ahead and join in this region. We also see over here that Dover joins, but like, Dover's not going to do anything. Like, the technology is too ancient. I don't even think Dover can get a ship all the way over here. So, they won't be joining. I don't even know if they'd hear the invitation to join. Albania has a lot of people against it. They also have Sparta over here. What the hell's going on? And now you might be thinking, is this against Albania or the whole Circle Alliance? Well, at the moment, it's only against Albania. As we see, a huge combined Crusader army will go ahead and meet over here, mainly comprising of troops of the Italian states. And they will go ahead and set sail, and they will sink the Albanian navy and make a landing in this city, managing to siege and take it very quickly. And we quickly see that the Crusaders will win a multitude of battles in these 4 locations, managing to secure a very nice foothold down here. And we quickly see that the Tsar of Albania will go over to his allies and say, join the war, please. And now looking at the alliance layer, we see that Albania will obviously join this. We see over here that Athens will join this. And we also see that over here, Montenegro will even go ahead and join this. But that is it. Serbia, Macedonia, and Bosnia don't join this. Bosnia is basically just a Serbian puppet at this point. And Macedonia has increased tensions with Albania recently over West Macedonia. But yeah, Albania is not getting the help it thinks it was going to get, and it's not looking too good. We actually see over here that Sparta was actually preparing to just invade Athens anyway. Venice was going to think of an excuse to go ahead and invade Athens. But now that Athens join against them, they're like, I don't even have to think of an excuse. As you see, that Sparta, who was already prepared for this, quickly launches an invasion in here, and they will begin a siege of this very powerful fort city here. Athens will send its full army over here to go ahead and fight, but when they get there, they realise that that's not their full army. Where's their full army? And their full army is actually all the way over here, as we see that Sparta has pushed very deep into this territory, like so. While the Venetian navy over here has managed to go ahead and secure absolute naval domination, taking over this island. And this is hella bad, as it cuts off their Bosphorus region over here. As we see that a few nearby Hungary countries will go ahead and see this and will go ahead and jump in on this idea. As we see that this pink or purple country over here, I think it's more purple, will quickly move in, securing a lot of land for themselves. However, we see over in this great city of Byzantium up here, that the local government will go ahead and establish their own state. We quickly see that this Byzantium government will go ahead and secure all of this land, including all of the Thracian Peninsula. Is that the Thracian Peninsula? I don't know, this region over here. We also see that this Izmir country will quickly move in, securing this major city over here. And obviously, maybe looking at this war right now over here and being like, well, Sword isn't doing like the thing he did in the Swiss video, where he's using like, oh, Johann's army did this and this. And that is because I will only be doing that for the really super big important things. Otherwise, it just takes too long. And like last video was so unbelievably long, so I'm not going to be doing that. But nonetheless, we see that the Izmir country will split this into 2, and they will go ahead and work down on this area, finally sieging and taking this last land, splitting the invasion forces with this purple country over here. But we actually see it's Venice over here will make a landing. They'll actually go ahead and secure Hellas Point over here. And this is pretty bad for everyone because they have now secured part of the entrance into here and they can now fully block this land, which is pretty damn bad for the Byzantium country, who is very sad at hearing this. And we see that Venice will go ahead and secure all of this land. And we see that Venice will secure its claim over here. And yeah, Athens is just cooked and they're basically just left over here with like nothing. But anyway, getting back to the main focus, Albania. We see that the Crusader army has gone on some pretty big campaigns over here, managing to take this city, defeating the Albanian army, and also over here. And at this point, we see that all Albanian forces are withdrawn to the capital. We see that a bunch of them are cut off here and killed. However, for the most part, most of them managed to flee over here, which leaves to this region basically undefended. A small local guard will remain in this city, which will go ahead and force them to go ahead and siege it, which will go ahead and like extract a lot of resources. However, we see that Montenegro will send its army into this region, managing to reclaim this land, pushing up against this river. While here, Croatia will go ahead and send its own Crusader army into this region, managing to secure a lot of land up here, which will force Montenegro to withdraw, as Montenegro resent its force up here, actually managing to beat the Croatians, pushing them back to around here. And this kind of causes a stalemate. And things get even worse for Albania when we see that their final or second to last major city falls, including this one up here, leaving only their capital, which will go ahead and be closed in on. As we see that the Crusaders will go ahead and set up a camp over here, right around on this like pixel or something, I don't really know. And they will go ahead and begin preparing for an all-out assault / siege on this city, which is by now heavily fortified, as Albania always prepared for this. Over here, the Athenian army has been crushed by the Spartans, caught in like a two-front war and destroyed. And with that gone, we see that the Athenian Tsar has been killed and all of Athens has fallen over to either Venice or whatever other forces are up here. Speaking of up here, we actually see that the new leader of Byzantium is actually a pretty good general, as he will actually decisively crush this purple team over here, managing to retake all of their land before signing like a peace treaty over here, where the purple country will leave all of the Byzantium land and Byzantium has secured a little piece of land over here. However, we see that Byzantium will go a step further and they will actually try and take this land from this Izmir country, which they will go ahead and do here. However, when trying to take this city, they will be repulsed. And with that, we see the Byzantium will go ahead and have to give up a bunch of land over here to Izmir. And they will also go ahead and try and take some land from Venice up here. However, they cannot take this city. And eventually they are repulsed. And they are basically forced to go ahead and give over the Dardanelles Strait to Venice. So that kind of settles this front line over here. That is done. But anyway, going back over to Albania, it doesn't look too good for them, to be honest. We see that the main Albanian force of around 20,000 is in the city defending it. There is a smaller force of around 1,500. And the main Crusader force numbers around 60,000 men made up from all across the world. And we go ahead and see that this smaller force of 30,000 has managed to go ahead and take this city. And they will now be heading to meet up with this force. And once they meet up, it will be game over for Albania. There's no way they can hold off a force that big. So we see that in the smaller 1,500 men army, which is actually over here, this pocket over here, they managed to go ahead and control this land. We see that they will make a dastardly march over here. And instead of reinforcing the city, they will go straight to the Crusaders' camp. And we see in this small Albanian army, one man will rise up, and this man says, "We may lose our land today to these treacherous invaders, but we will never bow. We will never bow to Venice and the Crusaders, and we will always fight." He comes up with a daring and dangerous plan, and this plan involves him setting himself on fire and running into the Crusader camp. Everyone present says absolutely not. We will not let you sacrifice yourself just to, hope this works on the Crusaders and does a little bit of damage. And this man is removed from his position in power and basically in prison, saying, "We will not let you do this." However, in the night, we see that this man will go ahead and sneak off, and he will do exactly that. And we actually see that the Crusaders built their camp out of completely flammable materials. And when this fire reaches the camp, it is devastating. We see the whole camp erupt into flame. Thousands of Crusaders are burnt alive, and the army of the Crusaders is absolutely disorganized. Everyone is running everywhere. Nobody knows if their commanders or leaders are alive. And we see that the Albanian army, hearing of this news and this noble sacrifice, will go ahead and launch a counter-offensive, and they will crush the Crusader army, killing and capturing and slaving a total of around 30,000. And with this momentum, we see that the Albanians have absolutely just turned the side of this war, as the Crusader forces are just destroyed. And we even see up here that the Crusader force that was going to go ahead and meet up down here has actually had a pretty terrible natural disaster, and the river has flooded, killing a bunch of them. And only around 10,000 of them has survived, and they eventually go ahead and make it here, but they are crushed by Albanian forces. And we see that this one man is known by a single symbol, and that is a torch, as this man walked into the Crusader camp holding a torch, lit himself on fire, and the rest is history, like I just said. And we even see that this man is so like significant and like basically seen as a hero of the country, and even just the hero of like the Balkans essentially. The people all across Albania will begin rising up as we see that this region will be secured. And eventually we see that almost all regions formerly occupied by the Crusaders will go ahead and return back under Albanian control. Apart from these three major cities, we see that Serbia, actually seeing the war turn sides, will actually go ahead and help Albania sieging the city for themselves. And even Serbia, the Serbian Tsar, will go ahead and commemorate and kind of like celebrate this man, this torch man, is essentially what they're calling him. And we see the Serbian army will march through Albania, coming down here, and they will go ahead and combine forces to decisively crush the Crusaders once and for all. And we see that this allied Albanian-Serbian army will continue their advance, pushing in to Venetian territory now, and it looks like there is no end in sight as they begin their siege of this major city. And it seems that this one man has completely shifted the war, essentially, in Albania's favour, as we see that more and more regions over here in Greece will go ahead and, I guess, kind of not really surrender over, but kind of turn their loyalty to Albania and the Albanian army, leaving this city to go ahead and fall. And eventually, we see that Venice will have no choice but to go ahead and accept a defeat in this crusade, as the Pope will officially go ahead and declare around 2 years after the crusade that they have lost the crusade essentially. However, they will also claim that they did win because they evacuated most of the fishermen people out of Albania. But nonetheless, we can go ahead and look at this peace treaty, where I guess technically Albania has won, if you really think about it. And there we go, this is the peace treaty which has been signed by all, I guess, kind of powers that were in the crusade. We can see that Albania has won. They have taken Corfu, 2 provinces here. This country has been released from whatever it's called, Venice. And we even see that Venice was so badly defeated that they just decided to basically just give up all their Greek land over to Sparta. As all of Greece has essentially just never been ran well under Venetian rule, so it's gone over to Sparta. Now, Sparta is still technically a puppet of Venice, although they do grow more and more strong in comparison to Venice every day. Going up over here, we see Montenegro did lose a province because they were beaten by Croatia, but that was about it. And I guess the final main thing is that obviously Athens is gone, so this region up here has been split, with Venice gaining access to the Dardanelles, and they basically just block any Bosphorus trade. Izmir got access to the, whatever this is called, the Sea of Marmara, maybe? I don't know. And yeah, basically, I probably missed some stuff in the peace treaty. I'm really struggling recording this episode right now because I keep messing up like every single flipping second, and it's just annoying me and I just can't think straight. So if I miss something in the peace treaty, then do point it out in the comments, but I don't think I have. I guess kind of some implications or impacts of this. The Byzantine country now has to purely trade with its neighbours, so more trade to like Varna, to this country, and also to some extent over to Armenia. But, you know, maybe they could go ahead and set up a trading colony up here, which we go ahead and see that they will establish a trading colony on the island of Crimea, like so. And this is that they can now trade over here because, you know, they've run out of trade because Venice has, you know, done Venetian things and blocked them from trading. But yeah, would Venice get stronger from this or not? I don't really know, to be honest. I honestly don't think they get stronger. This probably impacted them weakly. But controlling this is now actually pretty strategic. It would be better, obviously, if there was, you know, important countries in the Black Sea. So maybe this actually isn't too important for now. But yeah, let's go ahead and finish off the video with a lot of expansions for some countries. And I guess more countries existing, really. We see over here that Johan has gone ahead and gone on one more conquest, pushing up into this region, now pushing his frontier all the way over to this river border. Now, this campaign has actually been a pretty costly campaign for him, as the further north he goes, the more resistant the German people are to his rule. And we even see that Johan finds out of a great power up in the north. And that very powerful kingdom is this country right here, the Kingdom of Jutland, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's a kingdom. But yeah, that is a very strong country up in the north. And it's basically just been a pest, because obviously the Swiss's main strength is here. So going all the way, like, basically the same distance as, like, the Italian peninsula. Imagine we can go ahead and test. Like, that's how far it takes to get. Then what is that in terms of, like, elsewhere? Actually, it's not too far. Like, it's going from, like, Venice all the way to the bottom of Italy. Like, that's kind of the distance they have to travel. So, even though Jutland versus the Swiss, like, if they were to compare them, the Swiss are obviously a lot stronger. In this region, Jutland is actually a pretty big threat to the Swiss's control, especially over here in northern Germany. But yeah, New Jutland country. And now, where is the capital going to be? That's a pretty good question. I actually have no idea where I'd put that capital. We go ahead and see that Jutland will go ahead and place its capital right here. Now, I was tempted whether to place it here, or even down here. But I think I'm going to place it towards the Baltic Sea, rather than the Atlantic. I don't really know why, I just kind of chose it that way, and that's just kind of how it felt. But anyway, we're seeing more countries being created, specifically over here. As up over here, we see the creation of this pretty powerful York country. And there we go, we see a bunch of new countries end up forming. Now, I may have accidentally just gone ahead and made the, like, English-Scottish border on accident. If we turn on modern borders, you know, I've accidentally somewhat made that. But also, if we look at ethnicity, the countries up here are actually Scottish. And we actually see that the York country is actually Scottish. As we go and see, their capital will be, well, in York, or at least somewhere near the modern border of York. It's not meant to be completely accurate. And actually, that's kind of troublesome, because it's not actually in the Scottish ethnicity. Actually, you know what? Sod it. We actually see that this land up here is actually Welsh. There we go, I've reduced the Scottish ethnicity. And we see that York is actually a Welsh kingdom. Although they're kind of half Welsh, half not, which does create some tensions. But for the most part, they are Welsh, or at least their capital is Welsh, so they will be called the Welsh country. However, we see that this country here will actually be led by Scottish people, despite it being majority Welsh. While these countries up here are obviously a majority Scottish, and thus will be, well, Scottish kingdoms, duchies, whatever. But yeah, England/Great Britain is looking at a lot more field now. And somehow I've done it again, but I genuinely forgot to talk about the main flipping point of the whole First Crusade, and that is because this, like, torch guy has created a brand new religion of followers under this kind of torch religion. Now we see this torch religion will quickly spread across Albania. We also see that it will quickly spread into the surrounding kingdoms, as we see that all of these regions are quick to go ahead and follow this religion. We also see down here that this king of this land is forced to convert, and we quickly see that the people under this torch religion are pretty harsh in terms of their religious conversion. And the First Crusade was kind of right to think that, you know, these people are being prosecuted. As if you're a fisherman living in a country which is dominated by the, like, green religion, whatever I call it, the torch religion, then you're probably going to be killed or kicked out. But anyway, we see that this country over here will also go ahead and convert itself, not the whole world. We see the green religion will go ahead and reach Athens down here. However, Sparta will go ahead and basically ban the green religion for the most part, which kind of leads to most of former Athenian territory actually being under the red religion. Only really the main Athenian land isn't, which is something that is kind of interesting to see. However, we see over here that the Byzantium king will go ahead and convert himself, or Byzantium duke, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm just going to stop saying duke or king. I'll just call people king at this point. I don't really care. I mean, the ideologies still matter, but, like, at this point, it doesn't really matter if you're a duchy, a kingdom, or tsardom, or whatever. But nonetheless, we quickly see that this green religion will spread very rapidly. And we see that the king of Izmir will also go ahead and convert. And by the end of the episode, or the year, this is what the religious map is looking like. And the final event is over in Corfu. We actually see that everyone is just deported that it's the Vishman religion, which basically leads it to lose a lot of people, but whatever. And yeah, that is the religious map by the end of the episode. But we also see the red religion is going to do some expansion of its own. But actually, before it does that, it actually does some losing, as the regions over here in the Hungarian kingdoms actually become less of this religion and more of their, like, kind of paganish religion. I actually see over in Hungary that they kind of have their own religion that is so distinct and I guess kind of, like, collectively dominant that I'll show it on the map. Now, previously I haven't shown any religions that aren't going to be, like, super, super big and, like, not divided into one area. But this Hungarian religion is so dominant in the area it's in that, like, I kind of have to show it. But yeah, this kind of Hungarian religion will go ahead and exist, and it will also kind of spread a bit out here, even kind of into the people that aren't Hungarian, which is kind of interesting to see. But yeah, there's kind of 3 religions now, I guess, if you really count it. Also up here, I expanded this. I did this off camera, but, like, the London country is part of the red religion. But yeah, this video has been pretty sloppy, so I apologize. I think next episode I'm really going to have to plan out what's going on. This is mainly just a lot of stuff that probably should be spread over multiple episodes, but I wanted to fit it into one, and it didn't really end up well. But I guess kind of for the last thing, we are going to be seeing the Armenian country and the Kurdish country expanding. We see the Armenian country expands a lot, getting access access to the Caspian, now looking something like that. They will actually go ahead and go on another campaign up here, taking over this land, conquering a lot more people, and they will end up looking something a bit like this. Well, over here we see that the Kurdish king, emperor, I think it's actually emperor, has gone ahead and went on some campaigns into this region, mainly trying to subdue the rest of the Georgian people, who they view as kind of inferior and easy to conquer. And honestly, they kind of were easy to conquer. As you see, that all of the Georgian people, or at least all of the ones south of the Caucasus region, or the Caucasus Mountains, I mean, not region, will go ahead and subdue. As you see, the Kurdish emperor will go ahead and see the Caucasus Mountains for the first time, which is a pretty lovely sight. But nonetheless, his empire will be expanded. We actually see over here this brand new country will go ahead and appear. Now, I was trying to think of what to call this country other than Persia. I guess you can call it Persia if you want, but its capital will be here. This is kind of in like the Gilan province. That's probably said that so wrong. I was thinking of calling it something like the Achaemenid Empire or something, or whatever one of those was, like the Parthian Empire or something. But I guess for now, you could just call it the Persian country, maybe. Over here, we see the creation of the Rasht country over here. The Rasht. I'm going to call it the Rasht country, which is based around this city, which is the Rasht city. Now, I was going to call this Persia, Turan, or Iran, but I don't really want to, so it's the Rasht country. But anyway, this kind of like Rasht kingdom or duchy does go ahead and appear over here as a pretty prominent, I guess, kind of country. And it also does pave the way for a lot of further exploration, as we see that a lot more land is discovered over here. As we probably should be seeing some countries in Mesopotamia, but like I can't be asked to add them this episode, so I'm not going to. We also see that the Kurdish emperor has also expanded his realm down south, pushing to incorporate all of these regions. Now also becoming like a very strong country. It already was, but like it's now becoming a very big country. And they are now almost the exact same size as the Swiss. So they're nearing your spot, Switzerland, for the biggest empire. You gotta lock in, bro. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I apologize for how like all over the place this video was, or at least it wasn't recording. This recording has been extremely long, and I just want it to end. And yeah, I'm gonna so enjoy recording this. No, not recording this, editing. Let's see. You see, I'm already flipping stuttering 1,000 times and saying the wrong thing. But I'm gonna enjoy editing this video tomorrow, where I have to cut everything out every 2 flipping seconds. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video, which I have no idea what that will be, and I have no idea when that will be. So that's fun. Goodbye.